I do have 6 o'clock. We'll bring this meeting of the Finance Committee budget hearings together tonight, our Wednesday, May 3rd meeting. We have quite a bit of the 101 on our agenda tonight. My thoughts are we've got a few of our departments here with us. We'll let them come and present first. If anyone has any issues with that, let me know. If not, I'm gonna go on and move with soil conservation. They waited with us a long time the other night. Mr. Copus, I believe that's you. If we will, we'll turn to page 35 in the 101 budget, and we'll start there. Page 35 in the 101 budget. Yes, sir. Just in just a few minutes, we'll get started looking at this one and then ask some questions. You're welcome to come on up there. Yes, sir. Everybody okay with where I'm at? All right. We've got a few departments here, and that way we can start at this point. Be a little easier on time for them that are have made their way tonight. If you are, right now we're starting with soil conservation on page 35, which is 57,500, is what we're talking about here in this case. Mr. Copeland, would you mind standing and giving us an idea of what's being asked for in this budget this time? Yes, and how it would affect Trousdale County?
Yes, sir. I'd be happy to. And I work for USDA for the Natural Resources Conservation Service. Used to be known as Soil Conservation Service. And I'm here on behalf of the Soil District Board, Jeremy Fisher's chairman. But they were kind enough to give us the money to secure a partner employee. So currently, Dylan Duffer is in that position, and we're actually requesting if you would so inclined to have that position converted to a full-time county employee. I would say that out of the area I currently work in, there's 26 counties. He's the only employee I know of right now that's not a county employee, so I would say that's kind of a normal progression. Those jobs, a partner's position to where the county's contributed a portion of the money, $9,000. The state of Tennessee Department of Ag has contributed $9,000, and then USDA has contributed $12,000 of that. So it's a $30,000 salary for this individual, and he works with landowners in the county to basically secure grant money to do conservation projects, improve water quality, decrease soil erosion through a variety of programs that our administrative office. So, really the reason for this request is to, he has a 4-year degree, and employee retention is an issue for a lot of people these days. So we're just trying to ensure we can keep it.
So, Dylan Duffer, you said, I think it's the name, is that here, that correct?
Yes, sir.
Dylan's already employed and trying to keep him along.
Yes, sir. He is currently would be considered a sole district employee. So the county has given the district $9,000 a year to keep him employed. The state is, and then we are giving 12, and that's currently how he's being employed. Paid as an employee.
Where does Dylan work out of?
He works out of the old State Farm building down here, the brick building, which is the USDA field office.
How many days a week is that office open?
It's open 5 days a week.
5 days a week?
Yes.
And the hours are?
The hours are typically 8 to 4:30. So we're out and about in the field, so occasionally we're not all the time there. But Linda Marshall's the secretary. She's currently 20 hours a week she works. Dylan is currently working 32 hours a week.
Yes, sir. Okay. Excuse me, the 30,000 is in the line item on the proposed. It says be offset to 21,000.
Yes.
I'm assuming that's the 9 from the state and the 12 from you guys.
That is correct, sir.
But I didn't see it on our revenues. So that would be something that could be picked up.
I bet y'all, I don't know if this is something that y'all may have seen. I don't know if this helps or not.
So the county picked up 9,000 last year. This position was brought in last year, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Was approved 2 years ago.
Two.
Due to it being such a low pay, took over here.
Yes, sir. What, in this, is there an additional cost to the county?
So explained in this, and Amy, please chime in if you need to, but it's my understanding, income full-time employees going on, there are Social Security, FICA, retirement, insurance benefits. So, he has no intention of taking insurance this year, but, who knows 3 years from now. So, but yeah, there are incurred costs, and I think they're spelled out here. Looks to be about an extra $9,300. Why would that? If insurance is paid. You're not factoring in the insurance. Roughly 23.
And to confirm Mr. Dennis's statement, I did not include that revenue in there.
So on the bar sheet of 56,336, is that less than 21?
I'm sorry? I'm sorry, I missed the question.
He said the 56,336, was that 20? Is that less than 21,000?
No, it is not.
So you stated that this budget comes with an additional $9,000, so roughly 18,000 of total county inputs, what you're saying, whereas this position started on as a part piece of 9,000. I think at that time it was going to be shared with Macon County, if I'm not mistaken. Like that individual would be here some and there some. Is this?
He has been up there some restricted for training purposes. It's a project, and then we have he is solely dedicated to Trails.
It'd be solely dedicated to Trails County.
Now, Macon County does have an equivalent position as since 2007. They've been a full-time employee for several years.
So what is the total amount of new money there?
So last year, the total request was 23,367.
Okay.
And this year, the total request ends up being 35,447. And that's after basically that 21,000. That 21,000 comes in as basically a check every month. It goes to the district, and then they would actually write a check to the same trustee.
Can you give me that total new money again? I'm not seeing that same number that you're stated here. You said 23,367 was last year's, and what would this year's new be?
I think the 23,367 was changed last year. There was a miscalculation on Ms. Linda's part.
Okay.
So it was 23,287 that we did last year.
Okay.
All right, so what was the new number?
35,447.
So roughly $12,000.
Yes.
That's what I handed out at the,
And that,
Did I miss this?
it was at the last month's committee meeting.
When I calculate the social security and the ICA and the retirement insurance, but what you're saying is that your individual has no intent to take that insurance this year.
That is correct. His wife's got good insurance. It's over at 9.
I have no idea.
9.
You get the approved. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9.
you never know what the future holds, so obviously that could be an incurred cost.
We're wanting to remove that amount.
So if there's no plan to take that, can we drop the $7,056 off the $35,447 at this point, or no?
I don't see an issue with that.
I'm not planning on taking it, so.
Then we're really talking about a $6,000 increase to this budget, if I'm reading that correctly. Is that?
Yes, that would be, I feel like you needed the information because.
We appreciate that, yes, sir.
4 years from now, who knows?
Yes, sir, and we appreciate that, certainly. I appreciate all those up front.
It's like, what, 32 hours now?
That is right, so we tried for a long time to build it 40 hours and just that hourly rate. We didn't get that.
Well, it's easier enough to live 4 years.
I do this.
So instead of the counties putting out 23,287, the county be putting out 28,391 on that line item, if I've calculated that correctly. Roughly. And currently, this position is being filled full-time at the 32 hours already in our county.
Yes, sir.
I may be confused here on what I'm fixing to ask, but why is there a need in an increase if it's already filled at a yearly position? I'm misunderstanding something. Is there a raise in this, or is there, but it's currently already being housed as a full-time position in our county?
It is not currently
Without
paid by the
benefits.
county, though.
He's with benefits.
He's a sole district employee now, technically. And I guess if they had considered a trial, they would sole conservation district employee. And the partners would return that money to them to pay his salary. So this is requested to have it put on as a county employee so that he may obtain county benefits.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
just a question. The way the funds come into the position now, taking hold of the fund, is that the final place from here to?
It does not. That's a good question. That's kind of been a long-standing agreement for many years, actually, as far as counties that have those positions. They've probably been around since the 90s, I would think. Obviously, you don't know what the future holds. I envision that money to keep rolling in kind of like clockwork. It does not affect that coming into the county, him being converted to a full-time county employee, because that money through that partnership agreement is still going directly to the soil conservation district each month that he works his slotted hours. And basically, that check will be signed over and then given to Trousdale County for the reimbursement to cover this.
I'm sure we don't foresee that going away, but if it does, it could be the county's responsibility to cover this full position.
I would say it would be something that be discussed at that time. Obviously, I would be shocked. From our standpoint, our agency was so pleased with the positions that probably 4 or 5 years ago, they checked an extra 3,000. So I think all parties are pretty happy with it. So, and this is kind of a framework that's held up nationwide too, Kentucky, many other states. So it's a pretty common. But again, to guarantee that really helps.
So, Mr. Copus, I heard you say help farmers with grant writing, help farmers or community landowners with things of that nature. What potential gains do our members of the public stand to gain from this position?
Well, ultimately, like, for example, yesterday, we're starting to work on a grant to get a no-till drill into the county to have a second one to rent. If that goes through, that's probably $35,000 piece of equipment that will get into the county with the soil district only having to expand about 10% of those funds to be able to secure that. So that's one thing we're working on. A normal year, we just finished up our federal contracting period. And I think we have about $225,000 in funds coming to the county that's tied to individual landowners for various conservation projects on the farm. Gully stabilization, soil erosion, improving forest land habitat for wildlife, different things. And then through the state program, working on a request for rather 50 to 60,000 for that. So the idea is that with another warm body there, constantly, inevitably making contacts out on the land is going to build up the workload to try to get them.
Any other questions for Mr. Coles? Is there a thought process here in this case? It sounded as if we were comfortable removing the insurance from the line item. So we're talking about an increase of a little over $6,000 over what the county pays now. And then bringing on this individual as a county employee. Is everybody pretty well where we are on that?
Is the one in Macon County, is he a county employee or
She is, yeah. She is.
both counties?
Yeah, I don't, so I work in the Nashville area too. I actually don't, there may be one out there if I'm, but I'm not say probably. At least 50% of counties have one, so it, I would say it's uncommon for them not to be a full-time county employee. But they don't ever just like come in and start off with the normal progression.
Mr. Copus, I appreciate your input here on this case, and I think we are at a conversation to continue having. We're talking a full budget here in this piece. I think we've got the information it sounds like we need by the quietness. Dylan, I believe it was Mr. Guthrie, right? I appreciate your willingness to work around here. Hopefully, either way, you're already working in this community. Hopefully, our community gets to realize who you are and what availabilities there are in that office. So, something we can continue to. I think most of our community knows Miss Linda Marshall, so that's good to hear that that's an option there for people to be able to contact and work in that route. So, thanks, sir. Is there a will from this body before we move any further with that line? Are we comfortable trying to say we're moving this one forward to our commission, or are we leaving it as it is?
What was the bottom line on the increase?
Roughly it's $5,000, and that's with the 21,000 contribution and taking off the insurance.
I took the 21 off and 15, 13 off, and I still got 33,823
What was the 1513? I'm sorry.
insurance.
No, sir, that was 7,056.
missed that.
It's an increase of 5,000 some change, right?
It was actually a little less than 5,000, about 4,993.
At this point, y'all want to move with another and continue the conversation, or where are we at here?
I'm new to this, are you looking for, it's just a recommendation at this point?
That's correct.
We're not guaranteeing anything, correct?
That's correct.
From this committee.
A recommendation from this committee to the full body is what I was asking. Are we willing to recommend this movement to the full body with a positive recommendation or not, with no recommendation whatsoever? That's pretty much our job here, to look at these, delve into them and say, hey, we've looked through this piece and we believe this is a recommendable budget.
I make a motion that we
I'll second
recommend.
that.
I have a motion and a second to recommend this budget as it's been presented.
And that was extra, how much, 5?
That is, do we need to clarify that that is minus the insurance?
Correct. So you're,
Recommend, yeah, minus the insurance.
And I will second that motion.
have a motion and a second for a positive recommendation for this, or favorable recommendation for this, budget. All those in favor, or any more discussion? All those in favor, let me know by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed with a nay?
I'm gonna abstain, I'm not gonna vote on this one.
Abstain for cause or just an abstain?
Just abstain.
The only reason I ask the difference is that's truly a no vote, an abstain is. All right, moving on through our budgets here. I see Mr. Evans is here with Ag Extension. Mr. Evans, you willing to come to us now? Ice has been broken a little bit. Mr. Evans is on page 35, same page, just. So, moving top of the page here, 57,100, we're on the same
Same
page,
page.
top of the page. I know we met, as an ag board yesterday, and you had a new hiree. Hopefully, she signed the paperwork.
I hope so.
So, Mr. Evans, what are you presenting to us in your budget? We see it in front of us. Is there any pieces?
The biggest change is from last year's budget, I had 2 permanent employees. I knew exactly what their salaries were and knew what their benefits, and insurance is. Of course, the county, in the memorandum of understanding, they pick up 22% of their salary and, their insurance and benefits. And so if you'll notice from last year's is the biggest change is in the medical insurance. One of my employees didn't take insurance. When I budget until yesterday, I didn't know if I was gonna have, 2 employees starting, on a new budget year. And so, when they asked us to fill those, when I had to submit this, I had to do it like I was hiring 2 people with a master's degree. They were gonna take they were gonna take family insurance, and benefits. And so the biggest increase you'll see, it shows a $10,400 increase, but what, 7,000 of that is in medical insurance. And so, based on the young lady we interviewed yesterday, I know one of those individuals, so that salary figure is gonna come down because she doesn't have a master's degree. That figure will come down, as well as her medical insurance. Of course, I won't know how to fill that out until she's on board and she makes those selections. So until she starts May the 15th. Now, I'll know prior to our budget year starts, but I won't know until, so. And then I won't have another agent on this, budget that won't be hired until October. And that's why it looks like there's such a big increase. There'll be a percentage of that. I presented them last night. There'll be, over $2,500 of this budget will be returned to the county anyway, because I won't have anybody until the second quarter, of next fiscal year. But I have to budget it.
Your budget right now would fit, is budgeted for 4 employees to the county.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
we're looking at an $80,000 for 4 employees to the county. is really what we're talking about here. So,
And there is a 5% salary increase, but that is only on the 22% of our salary that is 39. And you can see that actually on her line item, that is the 22%. It's less than $1,000 to the county. So that 5% increases. Everything else we maintain the same.
any questions for Mr. Evans? Of course, as he stated there, there's a chance that that third position may be a master's degree, the highest paid piece, or it may not be, and then there's additional funds that are still excess in this budget. Any recommendation from this body?
I'll entertain a motion to move to the full body.
Motion to move to the full body with a positive or with a favorable recommendation? Have that in motion?
Also,
Have that second to that? Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye as well. Any with a nay? Ayes have it. Favorable recommendation for that budget. Thank you, Mr. Evans. Ms. Rosalie.
Either Ms. Rosalie or Ms. Trout.
Ms. Trout, we'll just keep going up from the bottom of those that are still here for us. You ready? Ms. Trout will be on page 30 with the animal shelter. Ms. Trout, you want to present what you got?
Sure. So the biggest increase that you'll see mine is a part-time employee. I have a single part-time employee, and I'm asking for an addition. I have volunteers, and with my volunteer hours, I've got enough for 7 full-time positions. And then if you go down a little bit more, you'll see that it kind of just gradually increases. The biggest thing that we'll have, other than the employee, is veterinary services. Just with the times, as people move in, there's typically about 2 animals per household. That item will probably increase as we go along, just a little at a time. Just because we've doubled in what we've been intaking compared to last year. We try to keep our veterinary services as low as possible because we have just some other things that, obviously our electricity is higher, and trying to keep those overhead things low so that our veterinary services can get most of our budget. But as you can see, most of our budget is looking at that additional part-time employee. And I do have at the bottom building improvements. I currently do have some projects that we are working on from this fiscal year budget. Haven't completed all of those, so we still have some of that left over, but we do have additional things that we need to upgrade. One most important is our roof. Our electricity bill is so expensive because of our electricity going out the roof. So we do have some additional reserve funds that we're trying to pull that from. That's most of our budget. It's just those part-time employee and then budget building improvements.
We can kind of bring the,
Yes, sir.
we can kind of bring the committee up to speed on how you're doing with 501c3.
Absolutely. I've actually been asked to take it upon myself to create a 501c3, which I have. We're in the process of just completing all of that. We've created our board, we've done our meetings and and those kind of things. We're just waiting on the government. So once we're finished with waiting on the government, and I have all of our i's dotted and our t's crossed, we will have a 501c3. The benefit of that is to bring in government funds. Being a government entity, we can't get those 501c3 funds that are, can be allocated through, not really individual, but larger companies that do help nonprofit organizations and the government. So there are, that's the point of the 501c3, is to bring in those additional revenues so that it's not solely stuck on the back of the county here. So once we get that finished, then we'll be able to write grants and different things like that to help support our current situation.
In discussions we've had about the 501c3, she said to me one day, with tongue in cheek, are you wanting us to get this 501c3 so we can raise money more available, or are you trying to get rid of me? And I said, it's a little both. But I said that with tongue in cheek too. But your opportunities to raise money from the private sector
That's right. That's the
are just tremendous if you go to the 501c3.
My plan in the near 5 or so, 7 years, is that it would be ran off of the 501 by just an individual, so me, and then having a government contract, which is how most shelters and most facilities do. What they'll do is have it ran by a group individually, and then the contract would be an animal control officer. That is what the sole purpose of, not necessarily the sole purpose, but typically those contracts include funding for an animal control officer. And then we can raise money to, grow the building that we have. I don't know if any of you have been to the building, but it is not designed for someone to sit in all the time, and I'm there every day. And although we don't go out and pick up animals, it is a service that we do need. And that's the goal, is to have that service available to the county, that we are policing these stray and feral and community animals in our county.
And one of the things in our discussion we've envisioned is to eventually be independent and the county make an annual contribution to the industry.
Yes, that's the contract part of it, is an annual contribution.
So, what I foresee is next year, we're beginning to build our funds and the county contribution to the less. And at some point in time, the county making like a $50,000 contribution each year to the private ones. But that's going to give you time to get your 501c3 going and create a website that people can make contributions and all that, so you don't see them. Just 1995 money, those kind of things. And the money's out there, and we both recognize it.
I think within a year of that, within a year, probably the 501c3.
You can answer that. I don't know how quickly you can begin to raise money, but once it's in place, you have a bunch of opportunities.
Once we have completed all of the, waiting on the government is really what I'm doing at this moment, to finish all of the paperwork and things like that, so that we'll get our 501c3 status, our nonprofit status. And then I would assume we will try to, within the first year, raise, really when you're applying for grants, most of these grant givers don't give to 501c3s that do not have a tenure of over a year. So if you're yearly, if you're less than a year, they're less likely to give you those grant funds. And so we would have to take at least a year before those grant funds will start coming in. That's why I said my plan within this, 5 or so years is that we work in that direction.
But you could also start as soon as it's set up, you can start private company.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Anybody have a question at this point? I have one. I noticed there was no insurance taken this year. Is an employee going on insurance?
I'm the only full-time employee. I do not intend to get insurance.
So that $7,056 is really not part of this budget. You know, it's kind of hard to sit here and look at a $39,000 2 year ago number and 192% increase to the 114,000 number that we're looking at in a 2 year time span. That's a large amount of increase to a department. The service it provides to the county, I understand. It is a large input to the county in change at a short amount of time. Now, I noticed that your budget this year is running $30,000, roughly under what is sitting there. It looks like a large majority of that is in building improvements that have not
They
taken
haven't
place.
completed. A lot of these things are in the works, just because most of these items are done in the warmer months, to the building itself, availability of the contractor. But yes, that is still, the intention is to do these improvements. And the reason for this increase, I would imagine, is most of this was done by a single person outside of the building on a part-time, when available, best they could kind of situation. So I believe that would be the reason why there is an increase, whereas now there are a single full-time and a single part-time employee, several volunteers. These animals are, they are being taken care of and then adopted out. So, you know, we're there. We're doing the job that is intended in the building.
I know these are some harder questions, but can this animal shelter be ran with the current staff without the additional?
Like I said, we have volunteers that come in. I would say that the number one question is asked to me about the time frame that these animals are staying in the shelter. And if there are more staff to do the day-to-day basic work, we have more time to get these animals out of the shelter. So therefore, with more people means the less time these animals stay in the shelter. So the animals are turned over faster. If we're doing the basic necessity work, then that gives us less time to focus on getting them in, getting them out. The thing that I'm asked all the time is if this is a no-kill shelter, and that's what I strive to be. So the point is that when we get that extra body, it'll keep these animals from that future.
How long are they staying at the shelter?
Currently, on average, about 2.5 to 3 weeks. On average, currently, that's not in the past.
No, in the past, it's been a
months.
week,
It's been months.
not according to the paperwork I have.
Staying in the shelter?
Staying in the shelter, it's been about a week, and they have rescue networks that they used.
Not currently.
Not currently, though.
No, I'm saying that these animals there are several individuals that have been in the shelter for months.
What you currently have.
Yes.
Well, I'm saying before you came on, the
That's
stay
because
was,
these animals were just being moved out, rather than trying to find homes in the county.
correct. They were at least trying to find homes, maybe not in the county, but they were finding
How
homes.
many animals did they have in the shelter at that time?
Hang on, backing us up. I appreciate the passion you have for the job that you're doing in this case. And I want you to hear that from me. All I'm asking in this case, and the question I really need to hear is, can this shelter be ran currently with that one less employee? Then no insurance on it. That's about $11,000, a little over $17,000 that we're talking about could come out of this balance.
The answer to your question, I believe, would be no. How many animals do you currently have? in my shelter currently. Altogether, including foster 12.
So how many can you handle at a time?
We should only handle 7, because that's what the building can house.
Do you have any numbers on how many animals are being held, have been handled this year? And now?
Not currently with me.
Any just like approximate idea?
About 123.
Do you have a current waiting list?
I do.
Is that to pick up or to?
To receive, we don't pick up.
Okay,
To receive, so either found a stray or owner surrender.
and what about adoption wise? Or rehoming?
Can you be specific in your question?
Basically, the ones that you have, do you have anyone that is looking for these animals or is willing to rehome these animals? That you currently have?
Are you asking if we have rescues currently interested in taking these animals, or?
Rescues or personal people that are looking for a home?
We have people asking if we have specific things all the time, specific breeds, size, and things like that all the time. But not as far as if they're looking at what we have right now. Because what we have right now are new, and so they have to wait a 7-day stray hold. And then once those animals are in the shelter, then we can put them up for adoption. But by law, they have to stay in there for a week on the stray hold. And then we have every single one of them spayed, neutered, and vaccinated.
I noticed down there you got 2 computers and printers.
Yes, sir.
Do you need 2 computers and 2 printers?
The amount of people that we have, it is recommended that we have an extra computer. The printer that we have currently is not worth what we have, and so we're trying to get something that's less expensive on ink. That's the cost of the new, that's the reason that we've asked for a new printer.
What kind of improvement? You got down here building improvement, I see it says upgrade the roof and play yard.
Yes, sir.
What are you thinking about doing that you're proposing $12,000 for?
So the play yard, the drain currently, the situation that we have in the basic water drain, it is eroding the side of my, where the concrete is, exposing the concrete, exposing the fence. And so it is currently washing away that area that we have the fence and in the concrete. And that would be to try to repair that. And then as far as the roof goes, there's holes in the roof. That's the reason why if you look at my electricity, it currently is at 3,300. No 1,000 square foot building should have a $3,300 electric bill.
What about your millionary services? I noticed there's a big jump in that too.
Yes, sir. We try to keep those costs low, but with the inflation, prices at the vet's office is high. I try to do a lot of those things in-house to make that as low as possible. But the things that we use to do those services in-house are also expensive. Veterinary services is probably going to be the second item on the list that's most expensive.
I'm noting that you've got 1,400 in spay and neutering, but then vet supplies and food treats and that medications going up $3,500.
The $1,400 is a grant,
Okay,
so it's just listed to let you know that there's a grant, and a lot of times, if we go over that, then it's pulled from that section. But we do use that line item to purchase the supplies that's used to vaccinations and things like that. We have food on hand, so we typically try to use the food that we have, but in the event that we don't have that food, that's what that's.
have you ever considered, like, on food wise, I know there is a dog food plant in Lebanon, and they used to make Great Notion, donations to animal shelters for that.
We do have that. We had a food truck delivered last year, and that's the food that we're still running off of. I know that that budget looks high, but this service is expensive.
I really appreciate what you're doing. Don't misunderstand, and I'm certainly not fussing. 2 years ago, we started at almost 40,000. This year, it's estimated to be 73,000, almost 74. And next year, it's estimated to be 114. We got a hard time explaining to our taxpayers, how we can put that kind of money in. And I understand, I'm sure you probably need every bit of this. But, to be honest with you, I think you need to find some ways to cut it some. I'm trying to tell you how to do your business.
Oh, sure. What would you suggest?
I don't know, you're more familiar with it than we are.
Yeah.
I would suggest that you look at it and see what you think you can live without. Maybe next year you can get some of these other things going, and it'll help you, it'll help us, because we're sitting here trying to make a budget out for 11,000 something people. And it's hard to explain how we keep going up 2 or 3 cents. Of course, penny brings in 3,400, but every time you get to that, then you got another and another and another. Everything in our entire situation this year, everybody's asking for more and more. And I don't know what's going to come from, to be honest with you.
How much are you wanting to pull from your reserves on the building improvements?
8.
I don't think I have that number listed. I don't think so, I don't have that number.
You should be 10,000.
I think you're right, there's over 10 or 12.
Chairman, if I might interject here, last year's budget was 110,000. May I suggest that Ms. Crawford go back and see how she could, $10,000 out of this budget to keep this budget on line with what she did last year, come back to this committee, to see if she can trim to $10,000 out of this budget.
It's really the part-time worker.
That's that part-time worker.
Unless you can find someone else. I think that would be fair, especially with her 501c3 coming online, and she's going to be able to run some more. That's just a suggestion.
There might be some other way that you can alter this, where it's leaking, where the roof's leaking, you got $12,000 up there. There might be another way that they can do. I don't know, that's not whatever.
I don't think I understand what you're saying.
You got $12,000 in reserve, not here, right?
If I understand you correctly, Mr. Ford, I think what he is meaning is, would it be a way to patch or repair the roof instead of totally placing a new
Or
roof.
to change the direction the water's going.
Right, reroute it, maybe a trench or something.
My intention is to replace the roof, it's to, tin the top of the ceiling so that there's a barrier above the roof. Because it's not the top of the building, it's the in between. So there isn't this regular tile, they put up some sort of, I'm not really sure what it is, but that is
So-
what is opening the roof, I'm sorry, yes.
Being careful here on this one, I want us to all be pretty careful. That 12,000, 8,000 or so of that is using reserves, so that's not actually in our total here, of that piece. The 114, 576.
Should be 20,000.
It's 8,000 of that it says using reserves. That's 8,000. She said roughly $8,000 that's reserved. She's got a $10,000 reserve fund that's coming out of. That's not, that total is not part of this 114. Make sure we understand that.
Well, let me kind of go in a little bit on that. So on your very last page, it has your breakdown of what your fund balance looks like. And her reserves are, if I remember correctly, out of that committed line, the 115 that's listed. So 4,000 is coming out of the unassigned fund balance, but 8,000 will come out of what is dedicated directly for the animal shelter. But it's
So
not,
4,000, not the 8,000.
4,000 is coming out of fund balance.
4,000 is the reserve, not the 8,000 reserve.
8,000 is reserves, 4,000 is fund balance, of unassigned fund balance. And that'll make the full 12,000.
So I ask you
I was
something.
just
Is
suggesting.
this total, this total?
Okay.
Sounds like the
This
12,000
total, this total,
Million.
because I didn't take the time to look what I just heard her say was,
So taking out the insurance, it's gonna be 107,000, but that's still gonna be,
that includes this full.
it does.
That's what I asked you, said, no, you said
I
no.
think the mayor
In
made
reserves.
Well,
good suggestion.
That's what I asked you.
Yeah, you have to leave that 12,000 in there.
I
Okay.
believe the 12,000 is coming out of, not out of the,
That was incorrect. Miss Amy and I were misunderstanding each other
Yeah,
right
it's an accounting gibberish.
So that was incorrect. That 114, 576 is the total of all those line items. So that is inside that piece.
But if you do take out the insurance that she is not intending to take, it's 107,520.
that do,
Do you need two computers? Could you just about get by with one computer?
I could get by with them.
Well, you might need a new printer, but I'll just one computer probably.
So how much would that drop out?
Looking at hundreds of dollars, so less than $1,000. I'm trying to find just something that is old files and access to it, not something fancy.
So you don't have a quote on the computers that you were requesting?
I do have a quote, I just don't have the total on it. It would be, for if I was getting all three items, it would have been just a little less than 2,000. But the minus the one, I can handle that. So the printer I'm looking at is $250. A single computer would probably be about $700-800.
All right. I appreciate your passion for what you're doing in this piece, and I get that. It's, I think where I'm speaking for myself, where I'm struggling the most is we've seen a $40,000 piece in 2 years become a $120,000 piece or $115,000 piece. And that's not a trend. That trend line looks rough. So at this point, we've already stated that the 7,000 is coming off for the insurance, and won't be anybody taking insurance out. So you're close to being very much right at the same budget that was approved last year. Mayor seems to think the 501c3 has an opportunity in the future for this department going forward. I think he's already got his eyes on that piece, it sounds like, in discussion.
That's
So,
the goal in the future, any
Are there any other questions for this trial?
Just one, I wanna make sure I'm understood that point. Are we talking about 20? Are we talking about 4? Are we adding or are we subtracting?
So that 12,000 stays right there. Basically, y'all don't need to worry about that amount. That is an accounting thing that I have to do on my side to pull from the correct funds. I know it sounds very odd.
So the 8,000 has already been allocated.
So 8,000 was received through donations, and that has been ear tagged in our fund balances as a committed thing for the animal shelter. And I can pull out of, like, she has her own little side bank account within the fund balance. And I can pull the 8,000 out of there instead of the unassigned fund balance.
Only to the side.
Correct.
I thought that's what you were asking. That was where her and I had got off a minute ago.
So what's your bottom line figure down here now?
Well, are y'all wanting to keep the 4,500 on the computers and printer, or did y'all decide to take 1,000 out? I was looking at something.
Just to get one.
Did I understand you said the printer and one computer was about 2,000?
It would be less than, so probably less than 1,000.
So you could potentially draw $2,900.
So are you wanting to set that at 2,000 for her? Is that what we're saying? Okay, with that adjustment, the bottom line would be $105,020.
At this point, that's pretty much running the same budget that was ran last year. And it also appears that that budget's gonna come in $30,000 under its stated budget last year. So it looks like it should come in, hopefully, similar.
Like a motion, we recommend 105.
With the 105,020, and you're good with that?
And I wasn't working on this 501c3, I don't know how that works out.
Give you a lot of room to drop the next year.
All right, got a motion, do I have a second? Got a motion and a second that we, with the removed pieces, that budget would be at $105,020. Any other discussion on this line? If not, all those in favor, let me know by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you, Mr. Trout.
Thank you.
Well, Ms. Rosalie, I told you a story at the beginning. I said you might go first. Here you are, Ms. Rosalie. We're gonna move, that's maybe the next one I see in, elections. Above that, we've been going in that reverse order, so we'll keep going that way. Ms. Rosalie, we're moving to page 11 for planning.
Page 11.
Yes, page 11 for planning.
And I think the Liberty talked to the county trustee and had her bring some statistics for us, so I don't know if you're
to kind of give you the state of the planning office, if you will, for the last year, the year before, and this is current up until the end of April.
So that everything good?
appreciate the numbers you brought forth here in this case. I would caution our committee to think about the fact that this is looking at a 2-year time in which building has been very strong on a 2% or so interest rate, and that has certainly changed. So I appreciate the numbers that have been collected, and they are the numbers that were collected, but there is outside data pieces that also affect those going forward.
And I understand, and the current trend has been the building permits haven't been slowing very much. Just a little, we still have several more months, but instead of a lot of homes being built, a lot of accessory structures. We want the income increase in the garages and sheds, so just saying.
However, those permits don't fund us the same amount of dollars as a, so there's some differences there as well. As we move into this page 11, as we said, there we are. There's a few things, certainly we know that in this case, there's not an individual in that position. Mayor, is there anything you want to bring to it, says needs to be discussed in this case on our packet? Is there a reason for that needs to be discussed, or we just need to move past that line item right now?
I think we can pass it. Currently, we're using the state inspector, and that's kind of worked out pretty well short term. We had a meeting last week with that inspector, with Rick Gregory and our codes and zoning folks on this resolution to talk about how we go forward and what our options were as far as whether or not we used an in-house inspector on residential and maybe contracted out commercial, which is a viable option. Whether or not at some point in time we post the position and kind of go the route we've done in the past. But short term, we've covered with state inspectors and the fees have not been unreasonable at all, so that's where we're at. But at some point in time, we'll have to look at that full-time supervisor director position, and as you know, you already know that Sam kind of suppressed that figure because of his restrictions as far as the monthly picture is concerned. It will be costly to fill that position with a person who's certified and has experience. So it's something we need to think. As far as the second line is concerned, Ms. Rosalie's taken up a tremendous amount of responsibility over there, and certainly everybody is for COVID time, the extra work that she put in since position.
I calculate that right, that is a 20% increase.
Yes, sir. Calculate the same as you.
But for the last several months, she's done both of the jobs.
As we are looking at that piece, that is a large. I had the same number, Mr. Dennis, that you had, a little over 20% increase there in this case. I understand most folks are looking at an increase, and I appreciate the work that you do taking on the pieces here in this case, but it's sometimes hard to, even though we're stuck in a position where you're having to take on a different amount of work, we're still contracting with a building inspector for all commercial and all those pieces. So that's a large increase to a position.
Building inspecting is a very, I wouldn't say a very small percentage of the job responsibility of that office, but it is a lower percentage than, say, the planning and the codes enforcement, which I've also taken on as well. So with the job responsibilities that I'm performing, it would be basically a permit technician position, which handles all the codes and zoning, ensuring everything is meeting the zoning ordinances and the codes enforcement.
So do I hear you correctly that you are our code enforcement officer at this point?
I'm fulfilling that position, yes. Plans reviewing, permit issue, yes.
Then Mayor, you made reference that we use the state inspectors as well. Is that an increase on other contracted services? Roughly 17 to 45?
That is, and if I may address that, that is a number I put in because we did not know at the time when this was created what the inspectors were going to be charging us. So if you look at it as kind of a placeholder, and I believe we recently have an invoice for about 3,100, is that correct? From Mr. McHenry for services that have been provided since early March. And I think I counted about 27 inspections that he did for 3,100. So that gives us a little bit better idea. Looks like it averages out to about 115 per inspection.
And they're one part of the inspection team that we've been utilizing. We've also been utilizing some inspectors from Macon County.
Are there bills about to come in? Are they gonna charge us at some point in time?
We have had an agreement with Macon County in the past where they would help do our inspections, and in turn, when they needed us, we would have them do their inspections. And so when we're going to be able to do that, we'll help. That agreement. As far as cost, there has not been a discussion.
So I guess if I'm trying to hear this correctly, Macon County has been helping us out.
Yes, that's correct.
So if that were to stop, because they're not getting something back from us at this point in time, then Lynn would need to do more inspections, if I understand that correctly. Okay. Just want to make sure I heard that the same way. That's what you said. Yes, sir, Mr. Ford.
Mayor, it's two questions. You intend to find another supervisor to do it?
Again, we're looking at what options we have.
Or not to do it?
When we had that meeting, Mr. Krieger suggested that I contact the mayor of Woodbury. In Woodbury, they do the residential in-house, but they subcontract commercial. And to see how this works for them, it's interesting that of the 95 counties, every county does this differently. And we're just looking at the most efficient way to do it. It's really like Cooper, Tennessee, as I understand it. There's no oversight on residential.
It's not Cookville, they do have.
Putnam County, it's Putnam County, outside.
Jackson does it.
I'll say that, I asked you that, so you don't have any intentions of trying to become qualified to do this?
Absolutely.
You
I have
are?
been studying and got ready to take my first certification test.
Okay. The reason I said that, if he was gonna hire someone, looks like we would be paying you pretty healthy amount of money just to be the office manager. If you're gonna try to get, qualified to where you can actually be that individual, that's a little different way of looking at it. Theoretically, I'll be honest with you, I think 20% raise is the way I line. Nothing over,
I understand.
I just gotta tell you like I said.
I think we would, Mr. Ford, I've looked through some other of these. 35,000 seems to be a cap of any other position I see that would be similar to that same type position. I don't find any above that number, so I have to tend to agree with where you are on that percent increase. I appreciate the job you're taking on, but I also go back, and when I came into this commission 4 years ago, this position didn't even exist. There wasn't an assistant to this position. So this has been added in the last 3 years, actually. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, it was only added 2 years ago as a permanent full-time position. The year before that, it was a part-time position.
You started out part-time, didn't you?
I think start out as full-time.
That's what I thought.
So in a short timeframe. We've gone from no office manager to a full-time office manager to a $40,000 requested office manager. Whereas I can't find another one of our departments that has anyone that works in their office that makes over $35,000. Folks in a county business, we can shake some, ruffle some feathers and things like that. I'll say that quickly. We sit here with the expectation to treat our employees fairly in those positions. And I appreciate what you do, and I want you to know that, Ms. Rosie, I truly do. The task that we're tasked with is looking at numbers and making recommendations on them.
What other offices are you comparing to?
Well, it's 35,572, and make that, I'm sorry. A little further, you find an office ahead of where I was. I looked at deputies under the trustee's office, 34,715. There's 2 deputies in the clerk's office at 67,000. You divide that out, it's a little under 35 each.
I would have to ask what the traffic and what the responsibilities are of those employees to compare those.
I completely understand what you just said, but
Still gonna ruffle feathers.
it's not the right.
What about the wage study and the job responsibilities of the office?
As I said, I haven't got that right in front of me right now, but 2 years ago, that position didn't exist. It was being housed by one individual, as the department head as well, supervisor of that department. And I hear you, but there are some positions it sounds like we put you in place of that due to an absence right now that maybe feels a little tougher than those pieces are. Anything from the commission at this point right now, great. If it's all right by the members of the body, I have a individual in the public that had a hand up. Is that all right with y'all? Okay.
I would just like to say that she's an office manager right now, but if she works at certification, then her pay could be revisited at a later point.
Well, that would look at a different position, a higher position. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Gregory?
Thank you, just to kind of add what Liz said, her position is office manager, she's effectively acting as a department head right now. And I feel like as long as she's effectively a department head, that'll also be considered as well. So she's more than just an office manager.
Mr. Gregory, I appreciate your point, but I will state it with this. There is no stamp that Ms. Rosalie can put on anything. It requires an outside contractor's stamp, and that's where I'll disagree with you. I appreciate you bringing the point to peace, but there is no stamp of approval, and that stamp comes with a cost, a pretty heavy cost.
Do you have any kind of timeline on when you think you can be certified?
For residential inspection, it should be sort of like within 6 months.
How long?
6 months. There's 3 different tests that you have to take. B1, the plumbing, and then the mechanic. And then you can fully certified to inspect this judge.
I caution us to realize that that would be a position that would have to be posted. There's other pieces to that puzzle that would have to go before us having that conversation, y'all. So let's back up to the budget we're talking about here in front of us today. Please, let's keep on track, on task with where we are. The one thing about this budget that's pretty clear is there is income on this budget often. As I cautioned us on the beginning, don't look at that income as being continuous income. Things are seeming to heavily slow in terms of interest rates, slowing down people's movements on items. It's just the truth that we set in front of us. So as we look at this committee you have in front of you, I don't feel it fair to ask Ms. Rosalie, would you take less money? I feel it fair for us to say, hey, here's what we're putting in this piece, and there's where the conversation stops at that point. It's not fair to put an employee on a position at that point in time, so.
And not that we're not saying that you don't deserve it, because you were doing way more than what your call of duty is.
Question about the GNRC services and the state inspector. I'm assuming that currently what we're saying, the state inspector number is gonna come in a lot less than that. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
So we've gone from 16,045. Is that, Amy, can you help us on that?
I'm sorry, I did not hear the question.
Line item 399.
Mhm.
Mayor asked, is that line item, he's stating on what we're seeing, state inspectors.
I would definitely say that line item is very much inflated. The GNRC services is running probably gonna run about 17,000 this coming year. So state inspectors, I'd probably say, I'm not really sure, honestly.
It's gonna be a lot less.
It's gonna be a lot less than 45,000 for that line
But
item.
it can vary.
It can vary.
Did we say the contractor services that we've done since the beginning of March, basically through the April month's worth, $3,100?
Mhm. And that's just from one contractor. She said she was using two. We do not have an invoice from that other set.
3,100 times 12, and it could be higher than that.
Correct.
That's, I knew where you're headed there, yes, sir. Well put, Mr. Dennis. Right now, we're currently at 3,100. You can multiply that by 12, 10 of that 31,000, and then there's another $6,200 on top of that 31,000. You ain't gonna miss that 45.
That's if you calculate over a year.
We are looking at a number in front of us here, some items that seem to be, it seems to me the biggest item of discussion is the line item 106 where the office managers pay. I haven't heard any others in this discussion. There is office equipment of a new laptop. I assume that must mean there's no laptop there that was currently already being utilized. So Mr. Edwards had purchased his own.
We do have a laptop from Mr. Edwards that is currently being held at the moment for instruction. Thank you.
Is it no way to give her a little extra while she's doing this extra, then?
Mr. Chairman, on that point, one of the big considerations when Mr. Edwards was terminated was the fact that Ms. Rosalie was doing a lot of his job. She was coming to all these meetings in the past to make sure that this commission was informed, brought up to speed, and give the information they need to make right decisions. And she has continued to bear the brunt of the load in that office. She's effectively running that office for the last 7 years. And on job sites, and the decision is with this body, but I won't call it to the attention, and she's carried it day. And will continue to return to the non-county.
Mayor, I appreciate that input. However, we've already been told, we know that that's gonna cost us quite a bit more when we hire a director for that position. And if we put that assistance pay at this, that office manager's pay at this rate, it doesn't change going forward. So it's a continuous piece. And I appreciate, maybe we're talking about a bonus or something of that nature for the overage work that the mayor can bring to the committee in the future. Say, hey, here's what I think she deserves based off of this. You do get overtime for coming to those evening meetings, correct? You are paid for those meetings, correct? Thank you. Mayor, you've said that a few times. Is there a suggestion you have here for us on this?
Why you throw that back to me?
It is your budget, Mayor.
They call it my budget, now.
And if you wish not tonight, we can have that conversation at a later time if you want to bring it to us.
Yeah, let me give you some thought.
It's just hard to do a 20% raise, and like I said, all these other boards.
And not only give the 20% raise, but if there's other candidates that apply for that position, whomever does the hiring decides to go a different way. It would be very unfair of us for us to give it to you, and then 6 months from now, say, you gotta give that back. Because now your responsibility is less, because there's no director in that position.
And if you get qualified, apply for the directorship, then you can get it. And then we can see to do that.
I like the version of kind of like a one-time bonus until that way Ms. Rosalie is not being cut out solely, but we are not obligating that money that we cannot take it, we don't want to take it back, but she is getting compensated something. Even though we do know she is getting compensated by overtime, but still, with everything she's doing, I'm not saying that that's solely. Something else that I do want to bring up, and I did speak with Ms. Rosalie today about it, was, and I don't know if anybody has noticed this, but the software that they're requesting, which is a big increase, something that is not. And to my understanding, and I think Ms. Rosalie can probably clarify, I think it's pretty much the same way that the electrical inspectors do. You can submit your permits online. When their inspections are done, those are entered in. You as a customer can go on there, you can print it. So that will cut out some costs for printing on her and some extra work or for whomever that takes that position. Kind of like how electrical inspectors do, that they key it in. Landon, you might can reassure me on that. I don't know exactly, but I know when we pull permits for electrical, we can key them in, request that permit, and then we can go back and verify. It kind of generates an email and says, hey, it's been inspected. You can pull that inspection up, see if it's passed, failed, so forth, print it out yourself, put it in your file, and that's where that 15,000 and I think that laptop tablet comes in, just for explanation. Am I correct about that, Ms. Rosalie?
So the $15,000, that was my next orange highlighted piece here. We'll take care of an online application process where it will send that application to whomever our building inspector is or whomever is inspecting that. It'll come to you as an email, you'll send it to them or however. I know how it comes to my dad as an email, he's the electrical inspector. That's why she mentioned it that way, but it's gonna come to him as an email, it's gonna go into his queue as an item to be worked on. Is that what that $15,000 is gonna take care of?
Not only is it dealing just with permits and the inspection, and let me tell you, this is one of the challenges, is getting information back from the inspectors that are going out to the site, whether or not something passed. If there's items that need to be corrected, it has been, I can't tell you how much time I have to spend on the phone, sending emails, sending texts. The contractor wants to know, can they move forward and put drywall? Can they move forward and do insulation? This helps alleviate that because it is done on, they can use a tablet, they could use a laptop, whatever, or even their phone to send that information back to me, send it straight to the contractor, it's automatically sent to them, and I don't have to spend my time doing that. But it also works with codes enforcement. This is one of the ones that looks really, really good. And you can add other modules to it as far as like the GIS mapping. get real-time information. Citizens would be able to submit their property maintenance complaints. And I can't tell you how many times I have been asked, could I pay for my permit online? Do you accept? It's like, no, I'm sorry, you need to come into the office and pick up your permit. And that can be a challenge for those that are working individuals, working the 9 to 5, when our office hours are 8 to 4:30. So, and there's even been in times past, where the county clerk is open on Saturdays. I've asked them to help me.
Mr.
Yes, sir, Mr. Ford.
Looking back at this, from 22 to 23, she got over $6,000 increase there. Plus she's getting overtime for all the time that she works in the later hours, so she's already past the 35,000 mark that you said was pretty close to what the others are making.
As I look through the budget, you can look through it yourself, but I can't find a place. I looked through it quite a few places and didn't find one. All right. And Mr. Ford, as I mentioned earlier, nothing discrediting the position we're talking about here. It was a part-time position in the year before that. So, and it didn't exist the year before that. So
I guess the way I'm looking at it, we give increases, and we can't do it every year. And our employees expect that, and they're looking for 2 months with what all's ahead of this county in the next 5 years especially.
Mr. Chairman, what we're looking at is a 2.5% raise built in, 2.5% based on this 33,033 would be $33,858. And I think we can turn it back to Ms. Thomas to look at an appropriate bonus, which would go to line 188, and she can bring that back to us at our next meeting. That works for that process.
I think that's a strong process going forward for this piece here. Ms. Rosalie, you are, that's here tonight. Conversation. We're gonna bring this one back up. We know where your part is. You wouldn't have to come back in here to a meeting that night by any means. We kind of know where we are, we know where the conversations are. If you want to come back, you're more than welcome. You're always welcome
It's a
to.
great learning opportunity.
To defend your
Government at
opportunity.
work.
But I think at this point, we're gonna ask that this item come back to us. Is that all right with everybody, every member here? That this item come back to us from Ms. Amy with a roughly what the county's step looks like for a couple of employees. I think we're hearing that the supervisor director here position, I guess mayor's taking that this is a approved need for that 2.4%. You're working hard for, it's what he's saying, and I appreciate that, because inside that step that was put there, it's a performance-based step, and I appreciate your performance is what we're saying here in this case. We're not knocking that. I want you to know that piece. So moving forward with that piece, now we'll send that one back to some refiguring. All right.
What was that leave that you want to submit to the court?
At this point, this one is not going to be submitted to the court yet. It's going to go back to refiguring and come back to us. Hopefully, we can, we've given Miss Amy kind of what we want to hear from the mayor, pretty good idea where we want to be. And we can get a budget in there with a bonus in this piece, maybe for the work that's being done. I do caution us to remember, even if we went to that number, you can't subtract from an employee's dollars after it's been given. So once it's there, it's there.
But you couldn't.
Yes, sir. A bonus can be removed. All right.
That's like a one-shot deal.
That's correct. So moving us, I know we're running here a little lengthy. I do think we have the majority of our budgets that don't, the rest of these will start rolling through, I guess, if you want to, and we'll try to go, if everyone's okay with it, we'll try to go to the 2-hour mark, and then we'll look at that point, make a decision from there. Mr. Paxton, I apologize, I forgot you walked in
I was
early.
about to say,
Thank you. Mr. Paxton, we will look here at, that is, thank you, page 9, the election commission. Back up 2 pages, page 9, the election commission. Mr. Paxton, I apologize, I did not mean to
No,
overlook
it's
you there.
okay, Wednesday is a childcare day for me, so.
We sort of heard. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, I tell you what, I don't want that to be said the wrong way. I enjoy having youth around us and the voice she's put into it. I hope you did not take that the wrong way. It came off the cuff and it wasn't meant that way. I've enjoyed having her voice along the way. It kept the mood a little easier.
That's right.
She's a singer and a dancer.
She is. I like that. Uh-oh, she got nervous. She heard me talking about it.
Yeah, if you look at the election commission budget, you're going to see that it is ballooned up seriously, and the reason is twofold. The smaller of the two is, of course, the move. We've been directed to move into the courthouse. Once the courthouse is ready for us, we'll do that. So then that's going to require some furniture, some things like that. I have purchased some of that furniture already out of the budgets previous, so it won't be as large of an impact. But the bigger impact is going to be the state mandated change in our voting system. The good thing about that is that will be reimbursed to us through a state grant. However, that is in fact a reimbursement grant. So that's why you see that in that budget. It's over I think it's like $139,000. So what that will entail is all of our voting machines will have to be replaced with a voting machine that has what's called a VPAT, which is the voter verified paper audit trail. Basically, it is in our case, the system that the election commission is going to go with is a printed copy. So folks put in like they do right now. Then when they hit the verify button, it will print a piece of paper over here. It's going to be on a roll. It'll let them see this is what you voted for. If they're happy with that, then they'll vote, just like they normally do. You press the red button and it's go. What that does is, stand still. Stand up here. It lets them see what they voted electronically. So, when you voted electronically, now you see it on paper. The second thing that will allow is that if there is a question about a voting machine, then we can actually go back and do a paper audit of it, because there'll be an audit. We'll have to do a lot of training. Obviously, we'll do some voter information days where we just set up at different places, go to different meetings, say, this is our new machine, and so folks can get used to it. The election commission right now is leaning towards going with the same company we're using now, so a lot of the things are the same. So that's what you see there, and then of course you see that the state will do a reimbursement grant to us to cover that equipment, so that it won't be an exact wash, but it'll be close to that. Also, the state does give us $18,000 towards the salary of the election administrator, which is the position that I fill, as long as I'm certified, and I'm certified in that position. So I'll be glad to answer. I don't know if, Amy, did you give them the other sheet?
I didn't, but I tried to put as many notes on our copy.
Okay, you put
as
them on there,
well.
okay. All right, so I did, and I have available, if you'd like to see, just a breakdown line by line of where we came up with each of those. This is looking at 2 elections, okay? It's looking at the March 2024 and then the first half of the August 2024 election. The good thing about the March election is that the state has traditionally reimbursed us for that one as well. So we should get that reimbursed, but again, that's a reimbursement grant. So we have to pay that upfront, obviously, and then we get reimbursed for those charges. So I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have. You will too. We also did reach out to the counties around us to find out what everyone is paying for voters, for poll workers, because that's a concern. Poll workers is getting harder and harder to find, particularly as our poll workers begin to age out. They're getting older, unable to do it, because for a younger person to take off from their job to come be a poll worker, we have to be paying enough to make it worthwhile for them. Yes, Mr. Paul?
You got 24/6 in there for maintenance and repair. You allow that on new machines?
Yes, sir. When you say maintenance and repair, what you're talking about is there's an annual fee we pay for the machines, and then also that's the programming and all those things that go into that. So each election is programmed. Actually, Mr. Holder, we've been blessed that Sam Holder does that for us. If not, we would actually have to reach out to Microvote, and they would have to send somebody down. That would cost a little bit more. And then we verify that. We have local thing, Mr. Moreland, young Mr. Moreland, Craig Moreland, and Rob Hall then come in and verify for us. So one of the things we try to do is make sure that everybody's comfortable with that machine is going to operate properly. So that's what that cost is.
So, Mr. Ford, does that answer your question on that part? Line item 192.
Okay.
If I'm looking at that correctly, it's got about a 54% almost increase. Is that for more election commission? It's going from $7,479 to $11,500. I think that's about 54% increase. Is that going to be new employees of that, or is that just increasing their pay?
It's increasing their pay. And also in election years,
Also two elections.
in election years, we also have more meetings. So, and what we looked at, Mr. Golly, is how much are election commissioners getting paid in other counties to try to keep pace with them. In some of the larger counties, obviously we're not a larger county, some of those folks, they do that full time. Of course, ours are part-timers. But they are required to be there during elections, they're required to be there during certifications. So that's where that number went up. And plus, with having 2 elections, we will have more than our normal 12. There's 12 meetings we normally have, we will have more than that. We'll have probably at least 16 meetings, if not more than that. And 2 elections.
I appreciate you were clear on that. It's an increase because of the needed increase.
Yes.
That's what I wanted to hear you say. Thank you, sir.
Can you clarify the difference between where I'm looking at 106, the deputy, and the 193 election workers?
Sure. We, last year, we brought on a part-time deputy, and we still have a part-time deputy. So she's year-round. She works 20 hours every week. And then the poll workers and the deputies that we use then are, like we have election, during early voting and election, we bring in other deputies because they're going to work 8 to 10 hours a day during that period of time. So that's why there's kind of 2 line items. Poll workers also are paid as, how do we word that, Amy? They're paid as contractors. Poll workers so they're just paid. They have no benefits or anything. The deputies actually they pay Social Security and Medicare, I believe, right? Mm-hmm. We don't pay retirement for them, but we pay those 2 things. So that's why there are two separate line items. Answer to that question.
So any other questions for Mr. Baxton here with the election? As we're looking here in this case, election commission budget has been presented. It has about an overall 15.7% increase in budget this year. It appears from what two items we just heard there, most of that is in increases to those workers, as well as an increased cost. If I understood you correctly, that is taking out the 129,000 is what I'm doing. I want to make sure I'm clear. I'm taking out the 129,170 on that number. So you're looking at 175,916 if my math's correct there, as the actual line item for this one, minus the equipment that should be reimbursed.
And what I try to do, I try not to get it to bounce too much, but in years where we don't have elections, it will go down some, because we just don't have those election costs. But I do try to spread it out. I know it's easier for you all, it's easier for my budgeting, if instead I pay everything in one year and then bounce it to the next, then you have such a roller coaster going on. So like I said, some of the August things can be paid ahead of time. So we'll do that, like the programming and stuff like that. That's gonna happen anyways. It's gonna happen before August. So we can pay that in that fiscal year. And then of course, some of the costs, like poll workers for August, that will be in the next fiscal year. So try to keep it, well, it does go up and down a little bit because of non-election years, or a year that we have more elections.
All right. Any recommendation of this body at this point? I do also know, if we'll know, there's also a $5,100 if you saw that furniture item in there, 7-Eleven, which is a one-time cost for that move. I appreciate you bringing out that conversation. That's in there for the move. It's going to happen when the move.
Yes, sir.
Courthouse is finished.
We've been coordinating with Cliff on that. I had actually started moving some stuff over to stuff that, and then it's all covered with dust. So I've stopped doing that. I'm not moving anything else until we get that finished.
I appreciate that.
Because we were just trying to think ahead and say, okay, like some of the extra records and forms and stuff that don't have to be locked up, I can move them over, and then I just said, oh, I'm stopping that because I don't feel like cleaning a lot of dust.
I appreciate that move. So any recommendation from this body on the election commission that we're looking at in this case?
I'm making a motion to approve it, recommend it.
Make a recommendation, a favorable recommendation
Second.
to the body. Favorable recommendation to the body. Have a second on that. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor, let me know by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? All ayes have it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Jake County, we're ready.
Finally. Should have called her.
Just let you know, Mr. Fiat is also here.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. He's on page 36.
I apologize. Is it Ben Farrock? Is that right?
Fiat.
Fiat? That's not an R, it's an I.
That's on-
I
sorry.
apologize. Mr. Fiat, I did not realize it. Your veteran service is what you're here for, is that correct? Line, page, that would be page 36. I apologize for missing you earlier, sir. Page 36, if y'all want to look, we have any questions for him? I certainly apologize for missing you there, sir. Anytime there's a decrease, I really appreciate it, sir. Thank you. It's not as much tough conversations to have in those places. Any recommendation to this body? Yeah, we have a recommendation, it's a favorable recommendation to the body for the Veteran Service Office. It's seconded as well. Any discussion? All those in favor, let me know by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? It is favorable.
How long has he been doing that? I think I've been doing that.
I did not either.
How long have you been there, Ben?
How long have you been doing it? Since the election.
Awesome.
And he's very helpful. He's been helping Miss Grace quite a bit, so
Has been good.
really appreciate him being in there.
That is great to hear. Appreciate that. That was a position we pushed many times to try to get in the struggle, and I appreciate you doing it. Thank you, sir.
Where's his office?
It's in, basically Miss Debbie's old office back there in the corner. It's by our
Also, he's up.
network room. He's at the administration, yes.
Great to hear. All right, well, let's continue to trudge on a little bit if y'all are fine with that. Okay. Starting back up, we'll go on to page 7 and start working with the county commission and start working through this. I think that's got everybody that was here to speak as a department head for our tonight's discussions. You're on page 7 at your top one there, your county commission. Might mention the referenced resolution 2/18/19/636 was made to follow the
mayor's increase.
Mayor's increase. That's what I thought. That was a resolution by the county that the commission followed the mayor's increase in percentage rates. That's what that resolution is. Any discussion here?
Favorable recommendation.
Motion for favorable recommendation.
Second.
And second for favorable recommendation. Mr. Ford, was that you going to second that one as well?
I just wanted to second.
All right, I'll give that to Mr. Ford. At this point, any discussion? All those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed with no? It is favorable. Next one we have on our, just chunking along, is the beer board. Yes, sir, bottom of the page, bottom of page 7. Budget is staying the same, proposed, no change. Have a favorable recommendation, motion for the favorable recommendation in a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. Where we at next? We're gonna. Mayor asked me to hold it for a while on the county mayor's budget here in this case, so we will hold this one till a little bit later. Skipping down to 51,400 county attorney. Same page, page 8. Page 8, bottom of the page, county attorney. It's Mr. Bellers. You might notice there was a large increase last year. His the way he was billing changed a year ago. That's what that was. That 35 to the 75. There was a new change in that billing, the way it was going to be billed and the expectations. At that point.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve
With favorable.
with favorable recommendation. Motion to approve and seconded with favorable recommendation. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor, let me know by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? Moving, if you'll notice, this one is, next is the, we've already gone through the election commission, so we will move to register of deeds. We're on page 10. I've noticed, and I don't mind saying this, if you looked at them, there's about a 4.15% increase in each of these, about, if I've noticed that about correct. Generally, that is following, if you'll notice, the wages of those elected officials follows that same pay scale that the mayor's follows though. So that's how that piece It is mostly there in front of us. Any discussion on 51-600, which is registered of deeds office? Motion to approve with a favorable recommendation from Ms. Body. Second by Mr. Dennis, thanks, sir. Any discussion? If I were to get through too fast, y'all just let me know. All those in favor, let me know by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed with a nay? It is favorable. Page, I was about to say, thank you, keep me up. Archives is where we'll move next, page 13. I'll start at the bottom there, stating this is about an 8.4% increase in archives is what if I figured that out correctly. Page 13, archives. 5119. It's very small. It's actually decreased over 2 years ago, if you'll notice there, from $9,000, nearly $10,000 back.
And those were two grant-funded projects.
2 grant-funded projects, there we go. Any
Motion for favorable recommendation.
motion and second for favorable recommendation? Any discussion? All those in favor, let me know by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed with nay? It is favorable. We are moving to property assessor's office. Bottom line, if I figured that one correctly, a little over 3% of an increase. But you will note that it's coming in an actual quite a bit less this year than it came in the year prior. The reason being, if I'm not mistaken, the year prior was a vehicle purchase, was quite a bit higher on that 168,042, that first year in was a vehicle purchase. Okay, so just making sure we understand that there was a reason for that decrease. It was a one-time purchase of a vehicle. Got a motion to send it on favorably. Second, as well, Mr. Gregory, seconded that motion. Any discussion? All those in favor, let me know by stating aye. Aye. It is favorable. Just to be noted, the reason I did not ask for nays, I saw all ayes in that piece, so no need to ask for nays. So, we are at the county trustees. Page 15. We seem to be buying quite a few computers this year.
Is this replacing a computer, does anybody know, or is it just adding an additional?
It is adding an additional, it will just give her another workstation for when taxes are paid in February. They have a pretty busy office at that time. It'll allow her to have just that extra workstation for her payments. She requested it last year, but did not, or this current year, but did not purchase it, so it's just carrying over.
I was fixing to mention that same thing. It was in the budget for last year, but not purchased.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion is second for a favorable recommendation. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? It is favorable. County clerk and data processing are both on page 16. We'll look at county clerk first. falling in line with the others that we've discussed, about a 4 points of change percent increase if I look bottom line to bottom line. Just a reminder, the 2021, sometimes when you see a 30,000 jump to a 67,000, in those numbers, that was an additional employee for that position, for those two full-time employees there, or deputies.
What's she looking at? I get the notes of where the water department's at. She's good.
Cliff is working on the countertops now, hopefully in maybe a month. There's not, but that expense would come out of Rita's reserves at the time, so it'll be a budget amendment later.
What I mentioned was there's not any dollars in this budget for equipment at this point. So that,
All she was really needing though, was it just the like bar stools kind of?
She got the chairs this
Cheaper
year,
or-
correct, she got those chairs last month before. I don't believe she's getting any new computers, but she is going to be requesting monitors. And Rita, if I got that wrong, I'm sorry. So when she does move over, they'll have new monitors over there. And I don't believe she'll be getting new computers, so she should have everything that she needs.
I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the favorable.
favorable recommendation, motion has been made. Do I hear a second? Second as well. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, let me know by stating aye. Aye. It is favorable. Data processing.
If I could speak to this one, because this is kind of my area, I guess.
It would be certainly fine if you wish to speak to this one.
So on the communication line item, there is quite a big jump, about 20,000. The Gmail platform that we currently have for the county does not have the auditing services that Mr. Beller would like us to have. And so doing that upgrade is about, well, 25,000, roughly running about 15,000 right now. It's going to be another 10,000 on top of that.
That will be year over year?
Year over year. And we can lock it in for, I believe, 3 years at a time. So it wouldn't increase every year, but it would be the same rate for 3 years and then increase again. And then the other one that I highlighted, we need to start looking at getting about 20 phones per year, because the ones that we have are starting to die off.
Seems like the big item here is
We did buy, I believe, 8 phones, about 10 phones over the year.
those will be purchased as needed, not upfront purchasing one, correct?
Mhm.
More or less, don't have to come in and say, hey, we need to add a.
Right, I like to keep about 3 phones on hand, so I can at least rotate them.
You say Mr. Beller, if I heard you correct, has asked that we go to this upgrade?
Yes, sir.
Sammy, what is the revising of the web design?
That is who hosts our website, and that's who we've used to design our website.
It was set to revise every so many years when it put it in place. I can't remember.
Correct. For every 4 years, we should get a free refresh design, and I believe that's coming up in the spring.
Sorry about that.
Motion to approve that.
If you're willing to, yes, sir, motion to approve, have a motion to approve with favorable recommendation. I have a second. At this point, any discussion from this body? If it'd be okay with the body, I have an individual, who is a commissioner with us that would like to speak.
Just want to ask Amy, the email upgraded, did Mr. Miller explain what the benefit of that would be?
It's best for us to note that Mr. Bellard has recommended that we have a upgrade and we leave it at that point. I would appreciate it if we maybe just leave it completely at that point. We do have a motion and a second at this point for a favorable recommendation in this body. Any, let's go to a vote. All those in favor, let me know by stating aye. Aye. It is favorable. I'll ask the body at this time, we have a few more, quite a few of those more. We're about 2 hours into our meeting. Where do you all wish to be at this point? Okay. I'm wherever the body wants to be in this case, it's fine with me. We are. We are moving to circuit court here in this case, which is page 17. The next few will be court pieces. We could take circuit court 17, 18, 19, and if you want to look at those together, I think we would be fine with that. I don't see a reason we couldn't. They're all our court pieces. Let's look at 17, 18, and 19 together. We really can't tell the judge what we're gonna pay them much.
Well, and they're all kind of following in sync with all the others. I mean,
3 to 4% raises, increases across the board are pretty much what those are. I said that incorrect, not raises, but increase in expense is what I mean.
Courtroom security expenses increasing yearly.
And that will be discussed on the sheriff's side.
That's later.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
you're fine, you're
It says
fine.
19.
I did,
Okay.
I apologize, all 19 through 5370. The 5.3, the courtroom security will be on the sheriff's budget, coming discussion. I apologize, that was my mistake entirely. So just judicial commissioners is where we stop at.
I'll make a motion, to have a recommendation for the general session change for the circuit.
We have a favorable recommendation for the circuit court, general sessions, chancery court, judicial commissioners.
Not judicial commission.
No. Okay,
I haven't looked at it.
that's fine.
so we have a motion on the floor for circuit court, general sessions, and chancery, is that correct?
That's correct.
Go ahead and put the judicial commissioner, it looks pretty aligned.
Judicial
I'll second
commissioners as
that.
well, and it is seconded. Any more discussion? Those items, and I know we're moving kind of fast, but those really did not change through this piece at all.
Motion is second.
Do have a motion and second, any, discussion? Sorry. If not, all those in favor, let it be known by, stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? They are favorable. Let me catch up with mine. If we get asked those questions where we present this, we want to make sure we've got our pieces lined up correctly.
Juvenile services.
Page 25.
I'm just catching up with things, sorry, y'all. I'm trying to write a few. Juvenile services is our next one, page 25.
Motion to approve the favorable.
Motion to recommend with a favorable recommendation. Seconded as well, Mr. Dennis. That was great one. Any discussion? All right, take a vote. All those in favor, let me know by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? It is favorable. Health Department's page 29. We'll come back to the volunteer fire department, some of these others on the, in next week's sessions. Tonight, page 29, public health here, in this case, under the health department, health center. I appreciate you stating that. I think it's $11 of increase there if I were, or $10, I'm sorry, increase there if I was looking at it. Motion to approve. Seconded as well. All those in favor, let me know by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Litter program, page 31. We've already discussed the changes to the animal shelter. Sanitation is later. So we're looking at the top here, page 31. If I'm looking at that correctly, not sanitation side of the, no,
No,
sorry.
you are.
We are looking at both. I apologize.
That top one is going to be with the sheriff's department. The
Alcohol,
and
drugs, programs will be with sheriffs on next, Monday night. Tuesday night, I mean.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so the sanitation education, it's a grant-funded program. We're always awarded $44,200.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion and a second to approve on the sanitation here in this case is we, in a litter program, what that's really boiled down to. All those in favor, let me know by stating aye. Aye. If any discussion comes up on that one, I'll just speak a little bit. I know I'll leave that out for now. We are moving to the senior center, which is on page 32 at,
Yeah, and both of those go together.
that's what, just about to say both these, right?
Mhm.
5600 here in this case, the 100 and 300 are together. We're talking about senior citizen and social cultural recreational services, adult activities. All under senior center, both items, 56, 100, 56, 300.
Motion approved.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. All those in favor, let know by stating aye. Aye. Both favorable. All right,
You're getting there.
we're very close. Libraries, page 33, your next page.
No, the first one's assistance, the second is librarians. It's just the way to.
Okay. I get what you're saying.
It's not.
I'm sorry, I was talking up here, I was kind of trying to figure out why the assistance was above the librarians on this one. We're used to seeing those reversed, and I was just trying to catch up with them. No, I agree with you, but I'm saying in the line items, they're reversed there. It had me a little bit, I just asked the question why. That's all I was doing.
Motion to favorable recommendation.
Motion for a favorable recommendation. Do I hear a second? Have a second for that favorable recommendation. Any discussion? All those in favor, let me know by stating aye. It does. Any with a nay? Is that, if I've correctly gone through this, that brings us to the other charges, page 37, correct?
Mhm.
Yes. Just make sure I ain't missed one. Good job. Lot moving on here in this case. Other charges, we're looking at
This is our miscellaneous category.
so does that include all these employees' benefits and miscellaneous?
It really does.
Okay.
Mhm.
So 58,400, 58,600, 58,900?
Mhm.
Everybody hear what we said there in this case? That's covering 58, 400, 58, 600, and 58, 900 together. Just make sure we're clear on that. That necessarily wasn't the same way written on your hearings tonight. It's always nice to see some decreases in this level.
I did have a question about the AEDs.
That is a new expense this year. We got AEDs in 7 of our county buildings. Someone help me out with that, about 2017, I believe, 2018.
I came on, so I don't know.
It is before all, well, you were here. I think it was about 2017. It was right when I was hired. And that, we got those through a grant through the Health Council. We had an inspection done by one of our vendors recently, and all of them are out of date and really need to be replaced. So the program is, I forgot to bring those amounts with me, but it's going to run about $12,500 a year. That includes the purchase of the unit plus any maintenance and supplies with it. I shouldn't say per year. I should not say per year. I'm so sorry.
That was gonna be my next question. I was like.
Right. I believe it's 144 as far as the program per unit. Let me see if I do have notes on that.
You're saying the program itself costs $144 a year?
Okay, let me rephrase. I need to back up so much time. It's 140 per month per unit, so it's 1,680 per unit per year. So that 12,000 is going to be an annual cost.
Is there not additional grant funds for those services?
I do not know of any at this time. I am more than willing to research to see if we can find anything.
The ones we currently had were not costing us an annual fee.
They were not, and that's probably why they became out of date.
Can I ask on a side note? Mr. Riley, are you aware, does the school have to have theirs redone like that?
I'd have to look into that and see what our costs are. I know
I mean, I was just curious because.
I know they're checked to see if they're
Right,
working. Our
and-
nurses actually run through that piece in each building, but I can't speak to
Sorry,
whether we
I'm
have a
not trying to put
cost.
you on the spot.
No,
I was just-
I will look into that piece, but I was personally thinking that I don't know where that cost is annually at in that case, if it is.
And I'm not saying that we don't need them. I mean, that's definitely something that you want to have on hand in the situation we are.
Mhm.
I would wonder
just
what the
that-
cost of an individual unit is and what we're actually getting in that annual fee.
I would like to know though, is there any grant money or anything to kind of help out with that recurring cost?
That will be an annual fee.
Mhm.
Is it state required that all of our county buildings have AEDs?
I don't believe it is. It was something that was highly recommended to us considering the traffic that does come through our buildings. But I do not believe that the units that we currently have had any maintenance or have had anybody inspecting them for, I would say, four years. I'm not sure who is responsible to take care of those, quite honestly.
So what all buildings are these being recommended at?
So administration building, the senior center, the courthouse when that comes back online, the election office, your library.
When you say election office, do you mean UT Extension Office?
Yes, because it will
Okay.
come, it will.
So not two
come
at the
out.
courthouse? Okay.
and I have forgotten the other two. I don't know if we carry them or if they would carry their own. I can look into that as well.
Admin, team, courthouse, UT extension. What else? Yes.
They get libraries.
Admin, courthouse, library, senior center, election.
Justice Center.
So I only ask this question because being in the school I'm in the position I'm in, I have to go through a training at the beginning of the year that I have to set through a course to be able to utilize and the AED available here in this case.
This would include the training of that.
This does include the cost of that training?
Mhm.
So is every, like, okay, say for example, in the admin building, is everyone in the admin building going to be trained to?
At least one from every department is trained for this. It is housed in Rita's office right now, and I'm assuming that it will move across the way with her. Water department was the 7th. They're in their own building. Or did you, is Tommy still here? He's.
He left.
So if the water department got their own when they moved to another building, we can drop that number down to 6 instead of 7. It seems like a small cost for the safety that it can provide when needed. I will mention that. My only concern is how do we maintain that we are keeping an up-to-date individual in those positions, in each of those buildings? That would be a concern of mine. I'll just be very blunt.
Does that include anything other than food orders?
It includes your device, accessories and equipment, which is prep and response kit, pads, battery, and wall cabinet. It includes the program management, device prescription, medical direction, agency notification. So apparently it would also possibly alert your emergency services. There's routine device checks. They replace the pads and batteries, software upgrades, future model upgrade options, and training.
How long is this contract?
It's an annual contract.
Does it have an option for longer term?
That is not listed in the paperwork I have.
I'll only ask that sometimes an extended term may help us out down the road.
We have someone in each building that can operate this equipment.
They will be trained.
But in the
No
years
matter
past,
how,
they
you
had,
know.
I'm sorry, what was the other
in the
question?
years, I mean, the years we've had it, nobody's been trained or had it.
They have been trained when they were first installed. Yeah.
Better to have it, not need it, you need to not have it.
Hold on, better.
Even football players.
And I will say this, I mentioned training, but it talks to you, it walks you through those processes as well. So it is very usable. All right, do I hear any recommendation on this one? Any? Have a motion for a favorable recommendation. That's 58,400, 58,600, and 58,900. Motion made. Do I have a second? I did hear a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, let me know by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? It is favorable. Y'all, I was afraid tonight was gonna be lengthy. And, it was. So, no right way to put that.
Should roll some snacks.
Well, I didn't want to stick around too long. But I do appreciate the mints that setting here for us today. And I appreciate your time. Miss Amy brought to my attention that I missed one last night, the nonprofits. But we can pull that one in. Do what?
You just approved that.
That was the same as the other, oh, that was a 58, never mind, 900. We missed 58,600 somewhere.
When are you wanting to do the mayor's office?
That was 58,600. We still missed.
Well, employee benefits, it was included in that in his motion. It's the
We'll
same
take it.
thing every
Yep.
year.
Sounds good.
Mr. Chairman, tomorrow is the National Day of Prayer, and we're having a mayor's prayer breakfast at 1 at 7, if you want to come by. Or if you'd like to call in my house, we'll cook midnight, and we'll be here at 5 o'clock. If you'd like to join me, I'd be pleased to have you. And then I think we're meeting at the courthouse tomorrow at noon to collect the community, but I'd love to have you for breakfast in the morning.
I appreciate that announcement.
We volunteer.
For tonight.
Four. We're like four, what?
I've heard it here, though.
Things quit, well, it's been kind of quite a few times tonight, so, but, listen, I do appreciate it. Maybe the nights we've got coming our way, if there's any questions you have that you would like to have brought to us, or anything you see in the next few days, certainly shoot those out, shoot them to Miss Amy, shoot them myself, either way, I'll get them to Miss Amy, and try to get us the information we need. I think the only thing I heard, can you rephrase me one more time on the school when you asked me a question earlier and I did not write it down, that you want, I needed to find out for us. What was that?
From school?
The
The
AEDs.
AEDs.
If we have a cost, that's correct. Thank you. Slipped my mind quick.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Somewhere in the notes, I saw what 2.5% increase is going to do for 330,000. Last year, we did it, everybody got nice raises. We're not in the habit of doing that 2 years in a row. 330,000 is a whole lot of dollars. That's my question.
As we look at each individual budget, I think that's where we need to have those discussions. And if I recall, there was a budget or two that we looked at tonight on discussing reducing those pieces. So I think that's what we're gonna have to continue to do along the way here. But I do see, Mr. Ford, I think what I hear you saying is it's cost us about $330,000 to get a 2.4% increase in the past, so it would continue to cost that plus
Well,
2.4%.
initiated that program was, we would do it if we felt like we could afford to do it.
As well as with a department head running a, I'm gonna hold
That's a
back.
10% increase this year in your tax rate, next year it'd be more, next year it'd be more, if you try to do that every year. I don't believe this county can afford it.
It does take roughly 10 cents to cover $340,000. That's exactly, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It'd be more next year.
That's way proportional numbers work. You're exactly right. It'd be that plus the 3.
Historically, we've
2%
done
of that.
raises every other year.
It is
We can't do it this year, I'm just telling you that's what we've done.
Mr. Ford, I encourage you to bring those comments up as we come along and looking at these budgets going forward. And I appreciate you bringing those out. I spoke loudly last year on that same thought. I think it will be on record, that's for sure.
Since it is referred to as a mayor's budget, I don't know about the mayor's budget, but I would suggest, if you want that calculation, that you have Amy calculate it before it's presented, rather than have it calculated item by item. During the
already done it,
meeting,
right?
because that was a train wreck last year.
I think she's already done it. Cause someone is, figures I saw
No, I'm
that
saying-
you had on there 330,000.
No, but I'm saying, to show you the figures without it, rather than wait to get in the budget meeting and start saying, going page for page and saying, okay, what's that, because
That's why I brought it up.
it's most inefficient, or at least from observers. That makes sense?
Are you stating you would like to see Miss Amy put in front of us a budget that states, here's the cost per?
I'm not saying that, I'm saying if that's the route you're going to take, we need to do something rather than basically that, that's just for this committee to consider.
When I looked at the back side over here, it said we ended, we started with 5 million this year. And at the end of this year, we expected to have 1.3 million. It's 3.5 million that we'll fork it out right here in front of us. We can't afford to do that up here in Dayton.
I think you're referring to the final numbers.
That's what I'm telling you, the back page, that's what it says.
And that is not all salaries.
No,
That is not all salaries.
I still didn't.
That is not all salaries.
She said that's,
No, I know it ain't.
Okay.
I know it ain't. You're exactly right. But it's 330,000, baby.
all right, do I hear a motion, moving forward? Motion to adjourn, and seconded, non-debatable, let those stand up that are ready to call that gone.
Get up.